The wait is over. The timelines have converged and the bunting's up for both Doctor Who Day 2020 and the return of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. Before regular episodes resume, here's our special birthday party for the Doctor's 57th anniversary, recorded a couple of days ago and live streamed out to followers on YouTube and Facebook, completing our live trilogy, if you like, as we unveil Season 3. Once again, we've a full console room here of some familiar voices from various shows this year, doing what Doctor Who fans do best, geeking out, disagreeing and diving in and out of some of those time tangents. We take in some sights, even break some exclusive news, and launch our interactive event across our social media platforms to celebrate our Doctor Who companions of 2020. What am I talking about? Grab a slice of birthday cake. Keep listening. Across the world and across the time zones, whichever one you're watching us from this afternoon, it's live. Type 40, Doctor Who Day 2020. Happy Doctor Who Day, everybody. Welcome to Type 40 from the Spacebook for the Fandom Podcast Network. On this show, we've always taken an in-depth and close look at this beloved television series, this modern mythology, the spin-offs, the merchandise, even the fandom itself, which is you and me and everybody else, everybody we've got back here waiting to come on. Doctor Who's gone from homegrown family favourite right the way to entertainment legend, hasn't it, and shaped the landscape of science fiction and fantasy for 57 years to this very day along the way. Now, step into our TARDIS and share this journey and this party, this birthday party here with us on Type 40. Hello, everybody. It's another birthday rolls around. Doctor Who fans, we love an anniversary, don't we? There's one for every day of the year, but this is the special one. This is it. This is Doctor Who Day. I'm not quite sure when Doctor Who Day itself started. It's an abbreviated version of what we always used to call the anniversary. I think, yes, some of you out there, maybe we sort of marked it as the anniversary above other anniversaries in our day-to-day life that we probably should have been noting first and foremost. I don't know. I certainly did. We are live streaming to all of you, and this is for our podcast too. So it's going to go out right across the podcatchers for absolutely everybody to enjoy and to share, whether it goes right or whether it goes wrong, whatever they say and whatever happens. Happy birthday, Doctor Who, and happy Doctor Who Day to all of you. Now, as always, I'm joined by Rosie, the House Dalek, here to keep an eye stalk on me, even on Doctor Who Day, just in case she misses something. I know that she won't. Yes, it's Sheffield's original and the best of all the time, ladies, and looking the part, very much so today, Sarah Graham, our starry-eyed girl. Happy Doctor Who Day, Sarah.
Hello. Happy Doctor Who Day. Yes, I'm all decked out. I've got my T-shirt, I've got my scarf. Yeah, and I'm going to enjoy this as much as possible. All positive.
Yeah. Well, it's not just your scarf, it's the scarf, the iconic, the legendary Doctor Who scarf. And how long have you had that one? I don't think I've seen that before. I don't know. You got it?
I've had it a couple of years. It's not the full length, though. It's the short one because I am very small and I would look ridiculous.
You'd fall over. You'd look like one of the Minions, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it'd be up to you.
You keep saying that. You're not that short. You're not that short. I'm the odd one out here because I could be the only one of the panel who doesn't own their own Doctor Who scarf, because I know that the original Hoonatic and my brother from another regeneration cycle, he's definitely got one. It's the other one, the burgundy one, which I'm still not sure which I prefer. We're going to ask him now. Happy Doctor Who Day, Simon Horton.
Well, hello there, folks. Yeah, happy Doctor Who Day. Or maybe I'll go and get the burgundy scarf and pop it on a little bit later on. But you see, mine is the full length one, so it literally buries me. But that's great. I was out and about in London a couple of years ago wearing this scarf, and I was in Foyles bookstore, if anybody knows Foyles, and literally a random person just stopped me and said, "Love the scarf." They had no idea that it was a Doctor Who scarf at all, but they said, "I love the scarf." I mean, that's cool, isn't it? Everybody loves a long scarf, don't they? I think they were probably just laughing the fact that I'm about this big in reality when you see me, and the scarf is this long, and it literally just winds round. But answering your question, Dan, I know when Doctor Who Day started, and I think it was the 50th anniversary. I think up until that point, it was always just the anniversary, and I think Doctor Who Day started to be talked about at the 50th anniversary. That's when I think it started. I've got my holy grail here. This is my idea of an anniversary. This is the 20th anniversary, the Five Doctors artwork by Andrew Skeletor that heralded Five Doctors on the Radio Times. The 20th anniversary, the Five Doctors is just, that's the height of my Doctor Who love at that sort of time, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm not that different. For all that I love everything that's come since, I remember counting down, not just the days, I remember counting down the hours.
And then, of course, the irony that we had to wait 2 days longer than America to see the Five Doctors. They got it on the anniversary day. We got it 2 days later. God, that was a nightmare at the time. It was so traumatic.
Why was that?
Because they tied it in. They wanted to tie the Five Doctors in with Children in Need that year. And so we went out on Children in Need night, which was obviously the Friday, 2 days after the anniversary. It was gutting as a British fan. There we go.
So we're 2 scarves in already. Of course, I do have Rosie and all my various other bits and bobs. I've got my mug. But I know that he's definitely got a scarf, and I'm starting to wonder if he's got a baseball cap as well. It's the writer, the director, and the producer, and the big old mega geek himself, Ian David Diaz. Welcome back. Happy Doctor Who Day, Ian.
I didn't even know today was Doctor Who Day, tell you the truth, and I'm a Doctor Who fan.
What?
So,
Ian!
It's not good at all. You know what? Talking about the Five Doctors, I can honestly, truly say that I think the Five Doctors is better than the last anniversary that we had, the actual show itself. Yeah, because the Day of the Doctor. Because all the Doctors were given a good amount of time to demonstrate who they were and what they were within the structure of the story. With the 50th, it was all right. It was good. I enjoyed it a lot. But the only problem I had with the Five Doctors was that Tom wasn't in it. And that was it.
But what there is of Tom in there is great, and the way they use that, and what a godsend the Shard of footage was that they had it that had never been screened. You know, I mean, that was fantastic to have. I think the difference for me as well is that the Five Doctors definitely feels like an anniversary celebration, whereas the 50th one still just feels a bit like a regular Doctor Who story. It's just got another person in it. Do you know what I mean?
It's got that continuation.
I see it in exactly the same place as the Five Doctors, but I think over the years, I think it doesn't seem like it belongs to either the series that was before, and well, it certainly doesn't belong to the series that came afterwards, because there was a new leading man. So it's sort of snuck in there at the centre of an entire week. 10 days worth of programming. I think it is 10 days, because I think Night of the Doctor came out 10 days before they had to rush it out, didn't they? Because the press were going to leak it. If
I was in charge of the 50th, it would be obviously Chris, Paul, and the other two. And then I would have had separate stories with them. You know, maybe team up Chris with Paul and, you know, stuff like that. That's how I would have done.
And I think that would have been the dream team for the 50th. Yeah. But I still would have found a little corner to fit each of the existing Doctors in there somewhere, just as a cameo, just like Tom's was. Yeah. The others deserve that cameo as well.
They did in the Five Doctors. They did it very well.
It was because the older Doctors obviously didn't look like they once did.
No, but
I know, but that's Tom. You know.
No. But
can of worms already, everybody. Can of worms.
We're talking about Paul and Chris. All right, Chris said no, but Paul could have easily been in it. That's
Paul could have been in it.
We've said this before, but when I say I think they got a bias against the classic Doctors. That's what I mean. Paul is part of the classic Doctors, and so them not including him in the actual thing itself. It's a bit of a smack in the face as far as I'm concerned.
Paul could do it now. He looks amazing.
before we get too deep into that, let's connect because we are live on YouTube at the moment. We've got various people all saying hello, not just to members of the panel. Good afternoon, Starry-Eyed Girl.
Good afternoon,
saying
Chris.
good afternoon to one another as well.
Hello,
We
Lee.
want to know, everybody out there watching in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, because we are streaming this direct as well to the Type 40 Facebook group. We want to know how you're spending this anniversary, this Doctor Who Day, the 57th. Let us know how you spend it. Keep it clean if you can. Because we've got Mega Neurobyte. He says, unsurprisingly, I'm painting Daleks again, currently adding the finishing touches to my Golden Emperor. That's definitely not a euphemism. I've seen his figures. Woo! That's a genuine Emperor that he's painted up there. Send us the pictures. We'd love to see that. Before I forget, because each and every edition of this show, of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, is just a tap or two away on the device of your choice, available on any podcast you can name: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Podbean, the Podbean app, everywhere, and new on Pandora. If you're in America, I know that the Pandora app is really, really popular, a go-to place for podcasts. We're all over there too, with the Fandom Podcast Network, of course, those brilliant people from the Fandom Podcast Network. We love them. We love working with them and getting this show out. Anniversaries, everybody. There is an anniversary for everybody, I think, in Doctor Who history, whether it's the 50th, we could talk about the 50th, and the same with the 20th, but also the 30th had its own unique charms, didn't it?
You're on your own with this one, Dan.
I like it. It was the first one that I ever saw.
But really?
My expectations only went high.
Well, yeah, they could only go up.
Well, yeah, because it blew my mind. We all sat down, obviously, and watched EastEnders. I grew up with it, so I was like, EastEnders? And I didn't know really what it was.
That was absolute rubbish, that one. Absolute rubbish.
I was on Twitter yesterday, and I saw a lot of love for it. I was talking to Samuel West, who plays the Rani's henchman in that. He was geeking out over that. He was tweeting about it and saying, look, even though I was in this, I took the gig because it was in between the two versions of Doctor Who. We never thought that Doctor Who was going to come back. So I leapt on this. I took the gig. But does it mean that I was in Doctor Who or not? Of course you are, Samuel.
No.
Yes. Don't be grumpy.
It's canon. It is canon.
I'm with you, Dan.
For God's sakes, what is wrong with you people?
I have to say, it's written by one of my very good friends. In fact, it was written by a good friend who was a lunatic. So I know the guy that wrote it. So I'm sorry to you, but it's not good. That's all I can say. I still love you, but it's not good.
Started today. I watched the 5-ish Doctors reboot.
That's brilliant.
It always puts a smile on my face.
Fabulous.
And to me, that's as important as the 50th and the 20th.
I agree totally, Sarah.
When I look back at these anniversaries, I've even got some fondness for the 40th anniversary, even though Doctor Who wasn't on, even though it was going to be a while until it came back. We were watching on UK Gold, that was. They did a whole weekend of Doctor Who goodies, old programming and newly filmed interviews. It was a joy. We just heard at that point that Doctor Who would be coming back. So obviously that did sweeten it all a little bit. But I think, whether it's the 50th, the 40th, the 30th, the 20th, or even the 10th, for some of you people out there who maybe you remember the 3 Doctors being on originally, I sadly don't. But obviously the story itself, you remember.
The 3 Doctors.
Absolutely terrific stuff. And again, they had each Doctor do their thing. Obviously, William Hartnell wasn't well and he was stuck in the thing. But that wasn't his fault because he wasn't well. But the other 2 Doctors, they had their own separate things in that show.
That's what has then fed into sort of future meetups with Doctors where there is this sort of antagonism. That was sort of created to a large extent by Pertwee and Troughton and didn't really exist beforehand. And it's now fed into the sort of lore that Doctors are always just a bit cranky when they get together, which is just great.
Well, that didn't happen in the 50th, though, did they? They got on very well, Matt and David. They were okay with one another. They weren't really slagging each other off or anything like that. He said he had a big chin, but that was about it. But in the Three Doctors, they both really didn't like each other at all, did they?
No, they didn't get on while they were making it as well, because Pat Troughton believed in sort of ad-libbing a lot, didn't he? And he took the general shape of the script and then just sort of ran with it. But John Pertwee was always on his mark. Always word perfect, and so they cashed it.
Well, the other problem was, of course, it was Pertwee's show, and so Pertwee was very proprietorial. His show, he didn't want another Doctor turning up in it. Yeah. He wasn't happy about the idea at all.
He's one of me. Oh no! You're one of me.
The magic. Yes, brilliant. Whatever it is you're doing, don't go and watch the Three Doctors now. Wait until the show's over, because you're not going to want to miss this. Problem being here points out that he's got this theory that Dimensions in Time was actually in the land of make-believe, or the land of fiction, maybe, from the Mind Robber.
No, I think it's in the Matrix. I think I buy that it's in the Matrix.
Yeah. Who knows? I think it can go wherever you want it to go. A disaster area. I remember the 10th anniversary and the Radio Times magazine special.
Oh, that Radio Times magazine special, the 10th and the 20th particularly. Again, that was just absolute nirvana for me, that 20th anniversary Radio Times special. I devoured it. I literally just sat and devoured that for weeks. So exciting.
Bloody hell, you're showing your age.
And we've got,
I bought it last year.
And we go from one generation to another. Here we have Emsy Leanne. That's Emma, of course it is. She's watching. Good evening, everyone. Looking forward to Doctor Who Watch Along later with Jodie Whittaker. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy Doctor Who Day, Emma. It's great to hear from you as always. And Matt Potts here. You need to see some of the Dimensions in Time bloopers. They're much, much better.
I think they're out there on YouTube. I think you can find them on YouTube, actually.
The Rabbi's in there, by the way.
Yes, we've got a message from the Rabbi here. What? Dimensions in Time is not canon? And lots of exclamation marks. He agrees. I think the Rabbi, if we say his name 3 times, he may well appear. What do you think? Do you want to say his name 3 times to see if it works?
Well then.
Rabbi.
It's not bloody canon. Are you out of your mind? What's that on?
It is.
No, it's not.
Canon. Very bad models of Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell's head.
Exactly.
Supposed to actually be them? Like, no, none of this was canon.
The 5 Doctors isn't canon either, because that hasn't got William Hartnell, and that's got a fake first Doctor.
No.
That's not canon.
Okay. If that's not why it isn't canon. It's not canon because it's meant to be a little joke skit.
That's
the 5 Doctors was meant to be a part of the show.
Is Time Crash canon then?
That's an interesting question. I would say Time Crash probably is canon.
No, you can't say that.
No. I'm talking about head canon. I'm talking about head canon. But again, I think the intention is everything.
Time Crash was done seriously and written quite well. So yes, I would say that's canon.
What about the Lenny Henry sketch where he meets Bastion?
I feel I have to step in here because absolute chaos already. Because the Star Trek fans out there, they did this with the animated show. They decided that they didn't like the animated show. It was too silly. Had they ever seen Star Trek? But yes, they decided they didn't like the animated show. It was way too silly. So, but they did like certain episodes of it. So they decided that Yesteryear was okay. We'll make that canon, and we'll make that one canon. My view is exactly the same.
It's the way fans interact. We fans do it. Yeah. But honestly, listen. Is Curse of the Fatal Death canon?
There's no Doctor actors in it again.
Listen, how does that make a difference? You need a Doctor actor to make it canon? No, the first time a Doctor is the Doctor, then he's a Doctor.
For the people out there listening on the podcast, yes, you're quite right. You've heard the voice. The legend has appeared. It's Philobikin, the Rabbi from another planet. You've heard him on the podcast several times this year. We couldn't have a celebration of 2020, such as it has been on Type 40. Getting the Rabbi back in. You made a hell of an impact on our show, my friend, particularly in the review of the Cybermen episodes, Ascension of the Cybermen. That very first time we got you on with Jazz Singh. Jazz, if you're watching, that was a great episode.
It's so bad. The only thing that's really remarkable about those episodes is they actually got worse as they went along, right?
That's the way I feel about all these anniversary stories and all those little nuggets. If we accept one, we have to take them all.
No.
The intention of the makers the intention, there's the ownership of it. BBC totally made Dimensions in Time. But also made Fatal Death. Also made like the Victoria Wood sketch.
But the other thing you have to remember is that Dimensions in Time was actually made by the producer of Doctor Who.
No, he was thoroughly fired by that time after being screwed over. He was a former producer, but it wasn't the producer.
No, he was still in charge of Doctor Who at that point.
But Doctor Who had finished; they stopped the production by then.
Yes, absolutely. But JNT was still holding the reign.
I've got to interrupt at this point now. We've opened so many cans of worms. I tell you what, it's not so good for your eardrums, but it's going to be a great day for the recycling.
Wait, I just want to get this straight. Andrew Beach is now the Time Lord. Is a Time Lord. That's basically what we're saying. Why was there a malice in the Queen Vic? I believe that it's EastEnders canon. Okay, that much I believe, and I do like the whole a bit. Listen, I love it. I like John Pertwee in it when he's like, "Madam, what year is this?" And he's like, "It's 1973."
Who wants a bit of birthday breaking news? Got some exclusive news for you here on Type 40 Live. Just a little bit of a birthday treat. I'll be very interested to hear your reactions. I know one of you is really into this whole thing, and maybe this will pique your interest. Genuinely don't know about the rest of you, but I was somewhat dumbstruck when I saw this announcement. Here we are. We can reveal exclusively on Type 40 Live, no other than Brian Blessed here is Omega in a brand new Doctor Who production audio drama here from Cutaway, from the makers of Cutaway Comics. Gareth Kavanagh, the Manchester-based comics imprint that has been exploding out the worlds of Doctor Who, is branching out into audio. And yes, they've gone for one of the big guns, one of British entertainment's most, I'd say, biggest name, well, certainly the biggest beard, and one of its best-known character actors, the mighty Brian Blessed, taking the role of Omega, has originated by Stephen Thorne, of course, in The Three Doctors back in 1972-73. He looks like he's about to eat the screen there on this special promotional artwork that we've been sent along, and there is a press release to go with it. Who wants to hear the details?
I do.
Here's the release. Cutaway Comics, Manchester's comics imprint exploring the worlds of Doctor Who, announces its first audio adaptation. Their latest title, Omega, has smashed its target and initial stretch goals as it goes into the last days of its Kickstarter. Announcing a final stretch goal, Cutaway Comics are launching an audio adaptation of Omega, written by the strip's author, Mark Griffiths, and starring Flash Gordon and I, Claudius actor Brian Blessed in the title role. Rogue god and stellar engineer Omega stokes chaos on the planet of Minos to escape his black hole prison. Will he destroy the universe in the process? Brian will be taking on the role of the Rogue God in this full cast adaptation of the hotly anticipated comic directed by Anthony D.P. Mann. Omega's co-creator, Bob Baker. Can we call Bob Baker a friend of the show now? I think we can, can't we?
I think you can.
Hi, Bob. Happy Doctor Who Day. And the same to you, Paul Tams, if you're listening. I am delighted to hear that Brian has accepted the role of Omega. Who else but such an iconic acting legend could play him? Paul Tams and I have had him on the top of our wish list for K9's new projects for some time. So yes, there's plans for Omega. We've got Cutaway Comics publisher Gareth Kavanagh. Hi Gareth, I know you watch the channel. Looking at something truly special for our final stretch goal. I was thinking who could have the stature to take on Stephen Thorne's dominating performance in the 1972-73 Doctor Who story featuring Omega's first appearance, The Three Doctors. Then one weekend I watched Flash Gordon and inspiration struck. Brian was interested in taking on the mantle of Omega, and I'm sure he will bring an iconic and powerful performance and produce something very special for our backers. The Omega audio will be available to backers in digital and physical formats, with physical copies available to those backing one of the merchandise packages. The Kickstarter ends Thursday, the 26th of November. That's in a couple of days' time, with available perks, including a unique opportunity to own a limited edition hardback of John Ridgway's black and white art for the series and a new comic written by TV legend Bob Baker called Eldrad Must Live. So that's everything we've got. You want to get behind the Kickstarter, and if you want to find the website and get on this right away, all of that will be in the description for this video. But yes, I hope you're as excited as I am. Simon, Brian Blessed taking Stephen Thorne's role. He's a legend, isn't he?
He's a legend in his own lunchtime. My God, come on.
Somebody explain this to me. Right, so they're doing a Kickstarter for this? So in other words, nothing's confirmed?
No, it's not that. This is what it is. Crowdsourcing has something called stretch goals that say, if we get up to 40,000, then we're unlocking this new goal.
So this project has not been confirmed. It's not, the money's not there yet.
All the details will be in the description. If anybody does have any questions, I'm sure there'll be more.
Oh, no, it is confirmed. It is confirmed. Okay, the good news is any backer can add a digital copy of Omega to the existing level for another £12.
The rights to Omega are owned by Bob Baker.
I see. Okay, now I understand. So I'm just totally confused. Yeah.
Cutaway Comics, they're involved with various copyright holders, establishing a range of comic books, fleshing out some of these characters, and using people like John Ridgway, one of the country's most most loved comic book artists and illustrators, and with this great history in Doctor Who lore, and of course, so does he. Brian Blessed, King Yrcanos in 1986's epic, The Trial of a Time Lord. And for a lot, he's overjoyed. He's always overjoyed to be doing whatever he's doing. I think he's just overjoyed every time he wakes up in the morning. But of course,
I can't think of anybody better to play Omega than Brian Blessed. I mean,
he's got the voice, he's got the presence.
He certainly has. It's brilliant news. And on the anniversary as well, with 3 Doctors being the 10th anniversary story, it's great timing. I'm very excited by that.
I couldn't believe it. And when I look back, not just at the Trial of a Time Lord, but at Brian Blessed's career, of course, he was tapped to be the second Doctor, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah, he was, and he turned it down. He famously turned it down. I think he might have been offered it again at the time of Tom Baker, I think. But he certainly turned it down at least once, and has obviously sort of said since that he regrets turning it down, but he had his reasons at the time.
And they did go to him because he was a big star on Z-Cars at the time. He gave them his pitch, how he would play the part, and his version of the story. Brian Blessed's got his versions of all sorts of stories. He's a great storyteller, but his version of the story is that when he told them how he would play it, they recoiled, that he scared them to death, and he never heard another word about it ever again. And the Duncan Shaw reminds us in the chat, last time Omega featured in Doctor Who was the Ark of Infinity with the 5th Doctor. It was, although there have been a couple of great audios since, Time War stuff, and a brilliant 4-parter called Omega itself. What else have we got? He's been to the top of Everest, says the Talons of Wayne.
He has.
He has indeed. And of course, Lord Thoth reminding us, Brian Blessed played Vargas in the second episode, actually it was the third, of Blake 7 there, as well as Space 1999 and The Sweeney, and pretty much every other TV show ever made. We talked last week about Big Finish at some length and how they put out a lot of content. And at the moment, I'd say that although there are other producers of audio sci-fi, they haven't really got much competition.
They really are. They really are the big people on the block. They created the space, I think, and they to a great extent, and they've worked it, and I think they own it. Nothing lasts forever. And everything goes down eventually. But yeah. But they're not. I mean, there are other companies. There's Caldor City. There's by Magic Bullet. But you get like 1 or 2 productions. You don't get like range upon range upon range that you do with Big Finish.
Yeah, I think this has got to be good for Big Finish. It's got to be good for listeners, people who like audio drama, who are invested in Doctor Who mythology, to build something else, stories that they can tell. They can spend a bit more time with these characters, and maybe even do one-offs too. I don't know. We've got some more stuff from Cutaway Comics coming up later on. Thank you to Cutaway Comics and to Bob Baker and Paul Tamsey. Very best of luck with this project too. We do hope it all comes together and this universe opens up. I think it's very, very exciting.
And of course, the other thing to remember, of course, is Brian Blessed is a huge Doctor Who fan. He loves Doctor Who. It's his favourite show. He's very public at saying that.
So, whenever he says that, I would love to know what they think of the current era. That's always because, they can't say anything be unprofessional and say, "Oh, they're doing a terrible job," but they can't.
Maybe they love it.
I'm always intrigued.
See, we're keeping it positive. We're not. That name is not passing our lips. I'll make a swear jar for you.
Very good, Sarah.
His Cutaway Comics Eldrad title, which was announced last week, Eldrad Must Live. Of course, Eldrad, the villain of the Hand of Fear.
Brilliant to see Glyn Houston there.
It looks like could be a prequel story then.
Could be.
I don't know exactly where the story is going to go, but yeah, I thought that was really cool. It's got a sort of Incredible Hulk vibe going on as well, which I think is great fun. Right into comics lore, exactly as it should be. Because comics, if you get the comics audience invested in what you're doing, they're a very, very loyal crowd. I've got something else that I wanted to talk about as well. But talking about things going into print, Simon Horton, what are you going to tell us about this?
I wondered where you were going with that for a minute.
It's what I'm looking at is the cover of the latest edition of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society titled Cosmic Mask. This is a long-standing publication that they put out now and again, a couple of times a year, I believe. It's fan fiction, is it? Fan short stories and fan artwork, Simon. And I believe you're involved in this one.
I'm only lightly involved. It's very kind of you to mention it. I'm rather chuffed with what's in there. Yeah, it's a short story that I wrote called, I think it's called Past Imperfect. I can't actually remember now. A Fourth Doctor and Leela story that I wrote that they very kindly printed, and I'm quite chuffed with it, and I'm very grateful to the Appreciation Society for printing it. So thank you very much to Stephen Hatch who printed it.
Is this on the web or is it an actual?
It's a free download. You can get it for free,
Oh.
completely free. Go onto the Doctor Who Appreciation Society website, and there is a link there.
Congratulations, Sarah. I can't wait to read
Well
it.
done, Simon.
Have a read of that. I also want to say a quick hello to Graham Robertson as well, friend of the channel, certainly friend of Type 40 in the Spacebook and Teleport, Blake Seven's sister show, because that's his cover artwork there, and very beautiful.
It's
Too, Graham.
gorgeous.
Well done. So, how long was the writing process on your short story there, Simon?
Oh, I kept dipping in and out of it. So it's probably about a week, in all honesty, because to use that horrible term, which I absolutely detest. It's very timey-wimey. It's very
Back to the Future.
I'm going to go with it's paradoxical. It's not timey-wimey. It's paradoxical. I actually tied my own self up in knots, I'm not. I'm going to let you into a secret now. I'm still not actually convinced I've got it right. My time paradoxical stuff might be way off. Flow charts, working out who met. It's really complicated. But the reason I just got inspired was because I love Tom, obviously, and I love Louise Jameson as Leela, and I really wanted to write dialogue for Louise Jameson, and so I really, really enjoyed doing it. And I really wanted to write it in the style of sort of mid-70s Doctor Who.
Write a comic, and crowdsource it. You could.
I should, shouldn't I?
We have a comment here from Eastlyn Burkholder, who's a regular in the chat. Who-length scarves was not an intentional costume design, but a glitch. Adopted and made fun. Yes, it was because the lady who...
What's the name of the lady who's...
Begonia Pope.
There we go.
No breaks on her knitting needles, were they? She just knitted up. They gave her a truckload of wool, I think, and she just kept going and kept going and kept going. And we got absolute magic. There's more. This isn't exclusive. Everybody else knows about this. There's more Doctor Who news broken, everybody. Do you want to see this? More audio drama, because, Big Finish, they've been going for 20 to 21 years now. They started their actual Doctor Who line with their main range, with the first release, The Sirens of Time, which, if you remember, was a multi-Doctor story with the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh Doctors. That was written by Nick Briggs, wasn't it? Well, yes. Next year, the main...
Nick Briggs.
Nick, happy Doctor Who Day. Next year, this line wraps up, doesn't it, with release 275, and they just announced what release 275 is going to be. It's called The End of the Beginning, and it's another multi-Doctor story starring Paul McGann with Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy there. That wraps up this long-running range in style.
It's not even on their website yet.
Isn't it? Well, I've got hold of it. Yes, Robert Valentine has written this one. I've not heard of Robert, but...
no, he's done a few things. He's okay.
David Schofield and Kevin McNally from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and the Twin Dilemma, of course. Who can forget that? They're in the supporting cast.
Wasn't he in the Twin Dilemma? Who's the McNally in the Twin Dilemma?
That's it, Kevin McNally.
Is that what? Is the Kevin McNally?
There's a little bit about the plot here, the universe is in a state of crisis, facing destruction for a change from the results of a strange spatio-temporal event. And the Doctor is involved in 3 different incarnations, each caught in a deadly adventure scattered across time and space. The whole of creation is threatened, and someone is hunting the Doctor. The 3 incarnations of the Doctor must join together.
I wonder what's going on with Sylvester McCoy there. Why is he's in silhouette?
I think he's the one. I think he's the one who's pulling their strings. And I noticed they've got Paul McGann there back in his. They've re-wigged him, basically, haven't they?
Right. Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Back in the Byron-esque look there. I thought you'd like to know about that. Saves you leaving the stream, doesn't it? Saves you turning it off to go and find out about it for yourselves. Yes, the Big Finish main range about to wrap up after all that time. Rabbi, you're a big Finish guy.
Not a minute too soon. Not a minute. Listen, this is a range that ran out of steam about a year ago, maybe more, and it's been dismal. It's been dismal. They've actually had the worst release they've ever done was been in that range about 2-3 months ago. Unbelievably bad story. But yeah, listen, they're looking to move into these box sets, which I think is a good idea. I think they're much more invigorated about that, more excited about that. Main range is just so run out of steam. That's not the only news. We've had a bunch of news come out today.
Yeah, are you talking about this, Rabbi?
Indeed, I am.
Woo!
Although the trailer didn't inspire hope.
I thought the trailer was phenomenal.
But his head looked like it was on a stick, and it didn't look like his head.
I just think I was just really, really excited to hear that famous Patrick Troughton trailer that only exists in audio. Hear that.
There was a fan reconstruction of it, which was significantly better. Just significantly better.
The Enemy of the World came out as a special edition a little while ago, didn't it? And yet now, yes, for anybody listening on the podcast, the Web of Fear is coming out as a special edition re-release, as a Blu-ray and a DVD and as a steelbook. This is part of the course now, but what they're doing to make up for the episode that still hasn't been recovered, it's been reanimated, hasn't it, and put back in there. Yeah, and I understand that the entire release is being filled out with a load of the usual kind of extras, Simon, of the kind of quality that we used to getting on these and the animated ones.
What's in the package? What else are they giving?
I think there's a making of and all the usual things like that. I haven't looked into it in great detail.
So when's the release date, Dan?
This one is out on the 1st of June next year.
Oh, that's
yes, on the 1st of June. I mean, that did surprise me because I think we were all hoping, weren't we, that missing episode was going to turn up before it would get re-released. But there was another one because steelbooks are becoming a bit of a cash cow for BBC Studios with Doctor Who, a way of getting older material that's been out once or twice out. And this was announced as well, wasn't it? A brand new steelbook of, funnily enough, we're talking about the 50th anniversary set stuff earlier on, Ian. It's all coming out again as a steelbook.
The thing that I was most excited with this is that finally in the UK we can get a Blu-ray version of An Adventure in Space and Time, the Origins one. It's the first time it's been released. It's released in the US on Blu-ray, but it's never been released in the UK on Blu-ray. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Right.
I should step here.
The only version that was out for the UK was that big box set that they did with where it looked like the moment.
Oh, was it in there?
It was included in that one, but it's like ridiculously expensive.
It's a shame it's got that logo on it, though.
That's the one I've got, the big box set of the moment. Well, here we are. We're talking about the fact they put that logo there. It's on the spine, the logo that is the General House brand now for Doctor Who. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. I have to say,
to be honest.
He doesn't spoil the artwork, so
no,
not at all. I think it's discreet.
Honestly, I just it's discreet. I can live with it, but I can't stand that. It's infected everything. It's like a cancer. That just goes freaking everywhere.
I agree.
And they would have sold more items without that logo on it, and that's just the reality. That's just the fact of the situation. Mm-hmm. They would sell more without that logo on. The reason they insist that logo is on everything is so everything so this current era, which is awful, which we're not talking about because they're not bloody talking about it. It's like November 23rd. There's no freaking nothing.
As regards the logo, how I look at it is the official Doctor Who Blu-ray sets. Those have been the highlight of the last couple of years for me of being a Doctor Who fan. I've gone from release to release to release. And Simon, we've talked about them on the show, and I now associate that logo with that range of Blu-rays. Nothing else. Sincerely, I don't. And I'm fine with that. It doesn't take away anything from anybody who may be enjoying anything else going on, but that's the box set logo to me now, and I do quite like it.
Can I just...
The only thing that irks me is I'm a firm believer in whatever era it is, it should have that logo from that era.
Exactly.
I agree with you, and I always did agree with you up until they split the brand into two, right? They did the classic and then the contemporary. The contemporary logo always changed. That classic logo that they use, which is essentially the Pertwee logo.
I've got that on my T-shirt. I don't know if you can see
everything, right? Yeah. It works with everything classic, and it just breaks my heart that they
talking about the classic brand. Talking about the classic brand, we have somebody about to join the chat who is a bit of an expert on this too, and he certainly subscribes to your feeling, Sarah, about the logos matching different releases, and he's long been somebody who's been whispering word of eventual re-releases for these Blu-ray sets. But for now, yes, maybe he'll talk a little bit about that. It's our friend JT. Happy Doctor Who Day, JT.
Hello. How are we doing? Can I just say as well, welcome, Brian Blessed.
Yeah.
How
welcome back to
amazing is that
Doctor Who.
casting?
Yeah. Yes, were you surprised as well? We had a few wows here. People were surprised to find Brian Blessed heading up a new project like that.
He's from my neck of the woods as well, so the Yorkies are taking over.
Do you live up a mountain somewhere, Sarah? No, I'm surprised. Yes, and actually, when you think about it, because it has gone on record before that Paul Tams and Bob Baker would have loved Stephen Thorne to come back to the role of Omega. Obviously, that can't happen now. But who else would you get to play Omega? So congratulations to Cutaway Comics and everybody there. A bit of a coup of a cast, and looking forward to hearing him chewing up the imaginary scenery.
I think that's fair enough.
Chew up your speakers, I tell you, that's what it'll do.
Anyway, how are you lot?
Good.
Wonderful.
Loving Doctor Who Day.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to the Fandom Podcast Network and all of the other awesome shows we have to offer. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture news podcast. Blood of Kings, our Highlander podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite pop culture topics. End Zone, the NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s and 90s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a new Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter under Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
A lot going on in the chat here. We've got Duncan Shaw asks, is the Rabbi a Time Lord from Gallifrey? Well, he's from another planet. You still won't name that planet, will you, Rabbi?
Yeah, I will not listen. I don't want any humans going there.
Chris Purchase says, I'm with Starry on that. The logo for the series should be on its relevant Blu-ray release.
Yeah, that was the original plan. I wish I'd kept the leaked. I was lucky I got leaked plans, the concept art. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to find them for you, and I think I must have pressed the delete button many years ago. because I can't find them.
See them online. I think you can. If you hunt hard enough, you can actually find them online. I've definitely seen them online at some point. And I mean, we all agree. Absolutely, it should be the relevant logo, or at minimum, that sort of classic, the Pertwee logo that they were, as we've already said, using on the classic range. So I totally agree. What I think is a shame, and I have said this in the past, is that people. Rabbi, you are correct in that a lot of people are refusing to buy these box sets purely because of the logo. So it is guaranteed that they would simply have sold more had they put the classic logo on, or a different logo, whatever, the relevant logo, it doesn't matter, just not the Jodie Whittaker logo. But what I think is a shame is those people that are not buying them purely because of the logo. Boy, they're really missing out on flipping fantastic.
Yeah, but as I mean, it's the principle of the thing.
I
right?
get it.
I don't you know what? Right, it's no mistake that's what they're doing. They went out of the way to put that logo on the classic Blu-rays when it should be the logo of that time, because they want to rub it in your face and say, "Look, Jodie's here." This is the way the Doctor's going.
I don't think that's what they're doing. I think it's a branding decision.
Yeah, I think it's branding.
Yeah, they just don't think they wanted a branding confusion. They want people to buy stuff.
And it's not an illogical strategy to put everything under one logo. But I think in terms of Doctor Who, I think it has proven to be a mistake.
There's still time, because as I keep sort of alluding to, they are what they're called special editions, aren't they? You know, I'm convinced that to make more money, they will bring out smaller versions in blue Amaray boxes with their appropriate logos as standard editions. I am convinced
you
that
can just download them from me for free, okay?
Something like that, yeah.
What still worries me as somebody who suffers from OCD, look, it really bothers me that one of these days they are going to change this Jodie Whittaker logo, and suddenly all of these are all going to be defunct because they'll change the logo on the. That's just going to be disastrous.
Of course it will happen.
I know, but it really bothers me. Now you've started with this logo, as much as I don't like it, you've got to finish, guys.
Well, they won't, because they did it with the VHSs, didn't they? Come on.
They have very specially gone out to do them as this range of matching box sets. So if they mess it up now, they're going to get lynched. Back in the day, they weren't bothered about branding, and now branding, not just for the BBC, branding in the world, branding is everything. And so I don't think that they will mess up with the branding in the same way, because they know nowadays everybody knows the importance of branding.
Well, with something like Doctor Who, it needs to be this is what they didn't realise. It needed to be at that moment an evolutionary process. Their entire ethos behind everything that they revised in 2017 into 2018 was baby goes out with the bathwater. It was a big mistake, because all they gave people was a viable and justifiable and easy jumping off point, and they never saw that coming. And that's not something I say with relish. You know, I like collecting this stuff as well, but I would have carried on with every range if they'd have carried on with the legacy.
Do you know what's really sad is that I didn't know it was Doctor Who Day today, right? And I'm a pretty big fan of Doctor Who, and we haven't got anything to celebrate it. There's nothing on TV. And it's really sad that we're holding on to the small bits and we're not getting something.
Watch that, Ian. Just go back and watch classic British
That's
television.
What I've been doing.
That's all you need.
We've been speaking about this for some time. You know, the fact is that the sad thing is the TV show isn't relevant anymore. We can't change that.
We went through 15 years of no fresh Who. This is nothing new. For those people who are liking the current era, we've got these.
Yeah.
I know, mate. I know.
Yeah, I'm liking these like creative fun projects, because to me it's, you know, other people are doing their own thing, and in many cases might actually be doing it better, and I actually think that, you know, they're keeping it alive.
Yeah, but it's sad. It's sad to think that, though, isn't it? That we're reduced to this. You know?
But to be perfectly honest, it is the 57th anniversary. The BBC have never done anything apart from once every 10 years, and who would, in all honesty, who would expect them to?
I think this is worse. This is worse than the Wilderness years, because at least you know something detrimental was being the face of Doctor Who at the time. I can't believe they're making another season with it. I just can't believe they're doing it. But I think as we're moving into it, we're moving back into Doctor Who being embarrassing. The public perception of it, Doctor Who is just an embarrassing show.
We've been there some while, my friend.
And like, do you remember in 2005?
But there's lots to be proud of.
For like 2 years, that like say, it's cool, and this isn't in this way. But I wanted to ask you: did you ever see? Because I never saw it. There was an original design for the Blu-ray release of Sharda, which Clayton Hickman was really pissed off they didn't use.
Clayton,
and I've never seen it, and I heard it was fantastic.
It was better than what we got. I'm sorry, I'm looking around me. Because if I have it somewhere, I will dig it out for you.
We've got a message on screen at the moment, again from Duncan Shaw watching along. The Mega Geek. This is just for you, Ian. Try Pluto TV. They've got all of classic Doctor Who series on there all of the time. I only found out that I'd got Pluto TV around a week ago. It's available through the Virgin Media box on the TiVo app. So I would imagine that Sky carry it too. So if anybody's watching in the chat live on YouTube or Facebook, let us know. Now, you can't do what you can do on the iPlayer or on Netflix and go through a menu and pick which episode. They stream these episodes.
Right.
So they decide what you watch when, but it is a nice little idea.
Can I just add there as well, please, Dan? For Pluto TV, if you're watching, all royalties, please, to Dan Hadley. Thanks very much.
Rabbi, I got your comics through today. Thank you.
Oh, you came in.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's made my day.
I was talking to a couple of fans yesterday, and I was saying to them, it's like you're ashamed to actually say that you don't like this era. It's like it's a shame to say, you feel ashamed to say, what's wrong with this era? How come I don't like it? The logo is stupid. It's this, that, the other. I'm not ashamed to say that, right? Because I want Doctor Who back. I've always wanted Doctor Who back. So I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to apologize either, because what they've done to it.
Off it being so good, right? Yeah. It was so. I mean, we had this golden, and we knew it was a golden age. That's the thing. Yeah. We'd never seen Doctor Who be cool before. And I remember sitting watching it with my kids. They were just the perfect age. But yeah, it was an absolute golden. It wasn't perfect. Not everything was perfect.
Exactly. I think from Chris to Matt. That's when Doctor Who was riding high, had the right amount of budget in it, great casting for the Doctors. When they got to Peter, it was fine when it started off, but then it kind of went down and it kept going down and down.
I think Peter improved. I think his last season was his best.
When we were talking about you're talking about your lads there when they were kids. I want to show you a picture, if I may. There's a picture here that when I was wee, this really, really encompassed what Doctor Who was for me, and I'm going to show you it. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Now, that was before the Five Faces of Doctor Who. That summed up the mystery of Doctor Who, because I had never seen that era before. And isn't that a gorgeous picture? That still gets me today.
And don't you think that when the pages start to yellow a little bit, that's the Doctor Who monster book, isn't it? That's the Target Doctor Who monster book. When that came out originally, about 1977, something like that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's about 75, I think, the first monster book.
But that does remind me, the first person I want to pay tribute to on Doctor Who Day. Let's just take a moment. We've got a picture here of somebody. This is a brand new picture that's been put out today by Clayton Hickman.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
First producer of Doctor Who, Verity Lambert there, hanging out with friends, filming Mission to the Unknown, which I think was one of the last episodes she worked on, wasn't it, Simon?
Yeah, it was Dalek's Master Plan absolutely was the last thing that she worked on. It was the last Doctor Who stuff that she worked on before handing over. And I'm not sure whether that is Mission to the Unknown or Dalek's Master Plan that they're sort of promoting at that point. But,
great picture.
Yeah, it's a fantastic picture, isn't it?
It's so weird seeing these things in colour.
Yeah,
it really is.
Do that is I'm not sure whether any colour photos exist at all, so I don't know how accurate the colorizing. Not that it matters, but as a geek, I'm interested to know whether those are actually accurate colours or whether Clayton has just sort of paint box and messed about.
See the guy behind? It looks like they stopped his makeup. On his head. I couldn't be bothered to fill this bit in.
I'm trying to think. He's got a mask. He's got a mask on in the actual episode, hasn't he? His face is covered up.
It really is right that we remember Verity Lambert on the day of all days. I mean, she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. She was so lovely and very approachable and very chatty. We mustn't forget this because, we're going on about all this stuff that's happening in the world right now and all this politics that is going on everywhere and that has come into science fiction and has come into Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. She was the first producer of the legendary British science fiction series that ran from 1963 to 1989. And she was a woman. We
wouldn't be sitting here talking about it.
And what colour was the guy that directed the first episode?
Warris as well. He's a gent as well.
Exactly. And he was a man of hue.
Indeed, he was, and he was. And don't tell anybody, but he was gay as well. Shh.
We don't want that getting out. That could change the world, Simon.
Oh, they'll infect you. I tell you what, they'll infect you.
I think that some people out there, the younger ones maybe, don't realise, because now, of course, Verity Lambert, she's the first producer of Doctor Who. But I remember, obviously, she brought not just directly afterwards shows like Adam Adamant to the television, but this was the woman behind Minder.
Minder, yeah.
This was the woman behind Jonathan Creek. This was the woman, and the hits just came on and on and on. She was so well respected. She was huge. Yep. People who worked with her, they still talk about it with not just with bated breath professionally, but the personal qualities that you were just talking about there, JT. They all say that. I remember talking to Ian Levine a little around the time she passed away, which is around 2007. And people were just devastated. She was only about 71, 72, wasn't she? I think she could have certainly been continuing to work in television now. She was at the time of her death. She just worked on a romantic comedy, and was it called Duck Soup, something like that?
Yeah,
remember that one?
Duck Soup. Yeah.
She was still
her only misfire, of course, was El Dorado. That was her.
El Dorado. Or was it? Was El Dorado a misfire? Everybody, let me know in the chat. I still miss it. I still bring back Mark. Bring back Pilar.
She was proud of El Dorado. And you know something? El Dorado would be a hit today because it was ahead of its time. If you go back
it was rubbish.
But if you look at the television that's out there now.
True. Can we, with it being the anniversary date, Duncan Shaw, I can see, has just commented to say, I understand Sidney Newman created the Doctor Who series. Yeah, absolutely, Duncan, you are quite correct.
Yes, it was his brainchild.
And he was Canadian.
He was Canadian, and he came from ITV to do it, in effect. Yeah. But it was Verity Lambert was the first producer, so she was employed by Sidney Newman to produce the first series of Doctor Who. So while Sidney Newman created the idea, it was actually Verity Lambert that ran with it and actually created what we see on screen.
It's like Stan Lee and Ditko, isn't it? Because Stan Lee was credited for
actually, no,
quite. Not
no. Let's clear this up now while I've got the chance to do this to the world, because I'm fed up of seeing younger fans, especially, coming up saying that Sidney Newman was like the sort of Gene Roddenberry of Doctor Who. He wasn't. He came up with the idea. And then he passed it on, and it was Verity that shaped it, and she became that. Now, if it had been up to Sidney, we wouldn't have got the Daleks, which cemented Doctor Who's popularity in the United Kingdom. Yeah. And then I see an awful lot of this stuff going on. Michael Grade went to see Sidney Newman to get the show back on track in 85 and 86. That is true, but all his ideas were rejected, and they were rejected because they were outlandish fop.
Sidney Newman's idea was literally on a little piece of paper. That was it. He just wanted something to fill the gap, and he came up with maybe a mad professor going through time and space. But it was very, very vague, and Verity was the one who pulled it all together with help, with other people, with
lots of help.
Mainly Verity,
the first story editor.
Lots of help, lots of alchemy was at work in those early days to create magic. Help behind the camera and in front of the camera. And that brings me to the first selection that I've got here, because this is something that I wanted to do for Doctor Who Day. I thought that this would be a bit of a laugh, because we're coming to the end of 2020. I thought we could do a Doctor Who Personality of the Year kind of a review. Type 40's Companions of the Year. And I've got a bunch of people here that I wanted to throw out there, people out there in the Doctor Who community who've really made a mark and have made a difficult year, have made 2020 with so little actual Doctor Who on. They've made the Doctor Who universe something memorable after all, given us a lot of great rainy days or red letter days. And the first I wanted to highlight was this lady here, Carol Ann Ford. Now, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you why. Carol Ann Ford, the original leading lady of Doctor Who. And now, of course, I mean, she's still very much with us. She was 81 years of age, something like that. And she's still acting. She still performs on Big Finish. But why I wanted to nominate her as one of the Companions of the Year for 2020 was the fact that she's launched her own audio series, a series of box sets this year with Big Finish, playing Susan in Susan's War. Now, I know you've heard this, Sarah. I would imagine you have too, Rabbi. It was one of the highlights of my year listening-wise. I thought it was a wonderful release. But more importantly, here we have a fantastic female lead in Doctor Who. She was fantastic back then, despite whatever went on with the character. And, of course, she left after just a year. but on audio, she's more than sort of made up for the character development that didn't happen back then. I thought Susan Zwar was incredible. For a woman of her age, she's got so much energy, so much character. Sarah, do you see why I've picked Carol Ann Ford here for one of my companions of 2020?
She's just brilliant. The energy she brings to it, and she loves Doctor Who as much as the rest of us. It's really close to her heart, and just to see all that joy. And the first story when she's reunited with Ian, it was quite emotional actually.
For me, she's still the queen of Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean, Simon? I don't want to use the expression Queen Mother because I think that makes her sound like she's 100 and she's not.
She's adorable. And in An Unearthly Child in particular, I just think she's fantastic because let's not forget, that was a hard part for anybody to play. It's difficult in today's climate to sort of think back 57 years to when Doctor Who, nothing like Doctor Who was on television at that time. And the part of Susan was a really odd part. It didn't really fit into anything. She was very much handed a poison chalice with this part as to what she was going to do with it. And it could have gone either way. And in a lesser actress's hands, it would have just not worked. It would have been a horrible mess. And yet Carol Ann Ford absolutely does it beautifully. She brings that slightly quirky, weird edge to it without it tipping over into sort of being a sort of pastiche or anything unpleasant. It just works brilliantly. She's great. And as Sarah says, she's always been such a brilliant ambassador for the show. She's never shied away from it. She's always embraced her time on the show. She clearly loves it. Who doesn't love Carol Ann Ford? We hail Carol Ann Ford.
Let's not forget, we're looking at a picture of quite a recent picture here. This is when they were recording Susan's War with William Russell there, who played Ian Chesterton then and still does now. And he had a big birthday the other day, 96 years of age, and still performing. Sarah, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
Love that. That first TARDIS team are just unbeatable. I love Ian and Barbara. Jacqueline Hill is just she was wonderful and taken far too early. I adore Jacqueline Hill's portrayal of Barbara. Beautiful. They're just a great team.
Wonderful team. There's so much history there. Sarah, when we talked on the podcast about Susan's War with Kelly Smith from Vortex magazine, you told us a great anecdote about how you met Carol Ann Ford. We won't get you to go through all that again because I know it was very, very embarrassing. But I'll make sure the link is in the description for anybody who didn't hear that. Have you ever met Carol Ann Ford, JT?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I've been around for a long time.
I know that, but they don't.
But I've met people that are sadly no longer with us. I'm very proud to be around when I was, and have been to as many conventions and to have met both fans and people that have been in the show over the many years. So I even met Michael Craze.
Yeah, I met Michael Craze. I had cider in a pub with Michael Craze, and he was
did like a bit, lovely,
so
lovely.
In the history of Doctor Who, has Susan regenerated then?
No,
was she?
She wasn't a Time Lord.
It's never been said whether or not. Well, we don't know. It's never been revealed whether or not.
We assume because she turned up at the same body in the Five Doctors, you can assume she's Gallifreyan.
Oh, okay.
But we just don't know that, and that's part of her mystery.
And they've never really guaranteed that she was definitely the Doctor's granddaughter. Obviously, she knows the Doctor's granddaughter throughout her time there, but it's never really been addressed since, and it's always believed maybe she wasn't.
In Susan's War, well, they don't go into depths about her past, but they do say that she is a Time Lord. They don't regenerate her. They've given her that sort of credibility, I think, with the Time Lords. Now, whether she is a member of that guild, that group of people, that culture as a honor thing, it should be what's the expression? Whether they've sort of allowed her in rather than her being a natural belonger of that society, I don't know. Well,
of course, Romana has never materialised since Lalla Ward took over the role either.
No.
So, there's no need. I think that there's no need for Time Lords necessarily to regenerate. As they always say, unless accidents happen, they don't need to regenerate.
On audio, they've kept her deliberately mysterious, and they use the character really quite sparingly. And if anything, they're kind of learning from the mistakes made even on TV with the Doctor himself. Rabbi, are you a fan of the Susan's War set? You're looking forward to the
Love it. And look, the base of all the Time War stuff is excellent. I love what doing a Big Finish. Susan's War, I think, is a standout from that. It's a really, really beautiful story. But the interesting thing, what they're doing with Big Finish with the Time War is they have all these different ranges, all these different sets, and they're all kind of like, you get the feeling now they're all building like tiles to make a bigger picture, and they're working to something with the 60th anniversary over the next few years with it. But yeah, Susan's War is going to be an integral part of it. That's why I'm really excited about the War Doctor. I think the recasting of it worked well with Jake Dubman. I really trust them.
These are all names that are going over my head.
How about this name? Never met Jacqueline Hill, one of only 3 companions. I never met Sir Disaster Area. Nobody here met Jacqueline Hill either? No, me neither. Sarah, I want to move along a little bit because this is somebody that you wanted to recommend for one of our companions of 2020, isn't it? So I'm going to put the picture up now, and you can tell us why you think this particular Doctor Who person deserves this honour of one of our companions.
Well, it's Peter. I mean, what else can I say? Yeah, well, he's been involved in a charity, the Noah's Ark Hospice in London, which is for poorly babies and little children, and he's been doing a lot of fundraising this past 12 months for this charity, and he's kind of like the not spokesperson, but there's other celebrities as well, but he's like the main one. He's kind of took it on his role, and it just doing the good Doctor's work, even though he's not the Doctor, he's still the Doctor to me.
Always.
It's funny, isn't it? I do feel that Peter Capaldi was definitely given a rum deal as the Doctor.
God.
He's everybody knows what I think of his stories, and we're not going down the negative route. But what I am saying is, all credit to Peter Capaldi. He's still stuck with it. He supports the show. He's a great ambassador to the show, and he's still an absolute cracking actor. So I feel bad for Peter Capaldi.
The reason why we like Peter so much is because if you take Colin Baker, right, his career is non-existent, but Peter's career is still going. He starts in films, whatever, and he still finds time to do this, which is really cool.
His love of Doctor Who is so clear from his performance.
Yes.
A
very generous man, a very warm man. Every fan who I know who's met him comes away beaming, sometimes for months on end. I know, being a fan himself, that probably informs it up to a point. Obviously, being a little older, having lived a life, been through a phase, Simon, even where he rejected his own fandom. Can you imagine that?
I know.
Burnt some of his merchandise. Oh, shock. There are several other people that I want to talk about too, and this one, Simon, I think I'm going to leave you to talk about this guy. So this is Chris Achilleos. Why did you pick him for one of your companions of 2020? Because that might seem like a left field one to some people out there.
Yeah, I picked Chris because this is to sort of tease people a little bit. I'm delighted to say that we've got a podcast coming up with Chris Achilleos in the not too distant future. Isn't that right, Dan? That was actually recorded a little while ago during lockdown. Anybody that knows me knows I just worship the ground that this man walks on because he's so important to my childhood. I just love his artwork, and those book covers from Target are just so important to me. And he was just a gentleman. He was one of the nicest people I've ever had the chance to talk to, and he came on and he did the podcast, and he was a true gent. And when he comes out, wasn't it? So this stuff is really important to me. And I say Chris himself was a star. He was brilliant, and I can't wait for you to hear the podcast. And the other reason I'm picking him this year is because, yet again, likewise, he is out there. He's doing stuff. This year, his website has really exploded.
Had a real renaissance, hasn't he? Hasn't he? A new product. He's been really re-energized by it as well, hasn't he? He talked to us for hours.
Absolutely. And I think we could still be talking now. And what was really, really sweet was that he was very, very humble. He almost doesn't realize in how much high regard he's held. He's a very, very humble, unprepossessing man, just a true gent. And I love the fact that now he's getting those mugs out there and they're very popular. And the guy deserves this. He is an absolute legend. He's my person of the year.
another thing I wanted to talk about. And Ian, I think that this may chime with your childhood a little bit. Somebody else that I wanted to pick as one of the companions of the year may seem a little left field. There is a reason why. I wanted to nominate Katie Manning for one of my.
Lovely Katie Manning.
I think this woman is. If we talked a moment ago about Carol Ann Ford being the queen of Doctor Who, I think if Doctor Who has a fairy godmother, it's got to be Katie Manning. She's a wonderful. She's a ray of sunshine. This year has been awful for people on lots of different levels. Not just lockdowns, lots of things that have tested people on both a personal level and obviously as a national and international level. And Katie Manning is there mostly on Twitter and Instagram, and she's been through a terrible time herself with a couple of problems with her own health.
Yeah.
And there she is, beaming this sort of sunlight out of your smartphone off these various platforms. Always offering hugs and support, lots of hearts. None of it ever sounds insincere.
She talked to me during the lockdown.
Did she?
Yeah.
Go on, tell us about that then.
It was, for VE Day.
Yes.
I kind of dressed up a bit, and it looked a lot like what she wore in. Oh, I'm struggling on the episode. I think it was Terror of the Autons. So I tagged her in it on the off chance. And not only did she reply, she shared it, and we had a little conversation, and just amazing. She's wonderful.
The thing that's lovely about Katie Manning is she's as mad as a box of frogs. She knows it. She is as mad as you think she's going to be, and she's just absolutely adorable.
Have they Big Fish finished on a companion story where like the
they've done a lot of stuff with her.
Right.
They do the third Doctor box sets where they have this guy called Tim Treloar. The first one where he basically plays the third Doctor. She's the energy she has with him is just absolutely perfect. I think she's one of those people who I would never want to see recast. I'm a bit nervous about the recast, even though they got her daughter. The recasting of Sarah Jane for the release next year. I'm a bit I heard it's not bad, but it's,
maybe the BBC should make a one-off with an episode with all the companions that are obviously still alive. And
listen, they can't even do a proper series. Never mind a spin-off.
Well, you never know.
If BBC wanted serious ratings, they should just greenlight Donna Noble Kidnap. Big Finish. It's a 4-part box set they did, and it's basically a spin-off. David Tennant's in it as like a cameo, but that thing will get ratings that the BBC just couldn't even dream of now, because it's just good, fun entertainment with somebody who you like, somebody you like being around that isn't preaching to you and telling you what's wrong with the world. Well, she is a bit, but that's kind of nice.
The suggestion. She was one of the original Eco Warriors, I suppose you could say. The suggestion of Katie Manning has gone down really well in the chat. We've got the best companion ever. We've got DJ Theta Singer. Katie Manning wins hands down for me. An amazing companion, such a lovely person throughout lockdown. She's been a beacon of light in a dark world. And somebody's got a question here, which I haven't got an answer to. Eastlyn Burkholder asks, is Tom Baker the tallest Doctor Who?
Yes.
Does anybody know the answer to that one?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Very, very slightly. He was always taller than John.
Who's the shortest?
Sylvester, I would have thought.
Yeah, I'm sure Sylvester.
How tall was Sylvester? How tall is Sylvester?
5'3". Was that
3'2"?
Staying with the fandom for a moment too, there's somebody I think they've we spoke to them again on the podcast earlier in the year. That's not the prerequisite for being a companion of 2020. The writer, John Collier. Now, if you're out there watching, John, hello. Together with Alex Storer, they teamed up to put together the most exhaustive, authoritative, and the biggest ebook probably in Doctor Who history, but a massive reference work on the history of probably the most missed, I'd say it's the most missed of all of the Doctor Who tourist locations, wasn't it, Simon? It was all about the Blackpool Doctor Who exhibition that was there from the mid-70s until the mid-80s. John and Alex, between them, put this book together with Alex handling all the visuals. This was a mission that John had been on for literally decades, wasn't it? 25, 30 years he'd wanted to write this book. And this year he finally got to do it. The book came out, this ebook. It was a massive success to the point it's already gone to a second edition. He has to be one of my companions of 2020. JT, were you following this story as a merchandise man, as somebody who remembers the 70s and the early to mid 80s? I'm far enough, you can't slap me for that. What do you think about this story? It's a typical Doctor Who fan story, isn't it? You can't fail to be touched by this.
Well, yes, and it's one of those classic cases, as we said before, where you had to be there. And I'm very aware of John, and I'm very aware of the book, and well done. And I believe there's another version coming out, or a sequel, or whatever you want to call that. I wish they had done it as a book. I'm old-fashioned. I like a book. So, John,
they're still
have a look into
about
that.
it,
but the original Blackpool exhibition will stay in a whole couple of generations' minds. It was so unique. It was so special. Walking through the police box doors and going down those steps, recreated in John's books. I'm getting the thrills again just now.
Yeah.
They used to play the Doctor Who sound effects record on a loop. It was just magnificent, magical times, and never to be repeated.
Alex and John in particular,
Alex
many
as well,
congratulations on the success of the book. We are really excited to see what's coming next. I think it's called Blackpool Revisited, the next one. I know they're talking about all sorts of things, and who wouldn't want to see that in actual real print? They need to have a talk to you, don't they, Rabbi, about getting a Kickstarter going or an Indiegogo going?
Can I give you a factoid? Because while we've been chatting, I have looked it up, and I can confirm that indeed Sylvester McCoy is the shortest Doctor Who at 1.89 metres, and Tom Baker is indeed the tallest Doctor Who at 1.91 is Tom Baker, 1.68 I apologise, 1.68 Sylvester, and 1.91 is Tom, who is the tallest. So there we go. That's answered that particular.
How comes the clothes fit him then when he changed from Colin Baker to?
They didn't.
they didn't.
Because those regenerated well, obviously. For anybody that's intrigued about Patrick Troughton, if you're thinking that he is the second shortest at 1.73, so he's just a couple of inches taller than Sylvester. So there we go. Now you can sleep easy.
We're talking up to date for a moment now. I am going to put this guy forward for one of my companions of 2020, and it's not without reservation. But I think I have to nominate him because this was my pick for a long, long time. This was my pick for the 13th Doctor. He's been involved with Doctor Who for around 7 years. A couple of days ago, I think it was, Sarah, that we first saw this guy because we mentioned earlier on, he originally played Waris Hussein. I always wanted him to play the Doctor. Okay. This year, of course, he did join the fictional Doctor Who universe. One of my companions of 2020 is Sacha Dhawan, who took the role of the Master in Series 12 of Doctor Who earlier this year on New Year's Day in Part 1 of Spyfall, and then again into Part 2. First of all, as an actor, I've always enjoyed his work. That's why I want him to play the Doctor. I think he's a very watchable actor, a very naturalistic performer, very instinctual, and more than all of those things, I think he relishes every part he gets, and the Master was no exception. There was a lot of problems with Series 12, I know, but this is a rare instance where I think that the casting of Sacha Dhawan as the Master was a master stroke. I love the fact that he loves playing the part so much. I love how he is with a fan base. Several fans out there have met him. I wasn't entirely impressed with the scripts he was given, but here is an actor in the right role who sinks his teeth in, shows us what it's like to have a commanding lead and a strong actor back in this show, shaming everybody else. So I say welcome to the Doctor Who universe proper to Sacha Dhawan. I hope you've had a great 2020, and thanks for giving us a character that I could really believe in.
I don't agree with you at all. He should be the Doctor, yes, definitely. If they were going to do the Doctor, cast that man, because he's definitely. But as the Master, he was terrible. The scripts were awful, therefore he was terrible.
I'm afraid I agree.
I think the one thing we can all kind of agree about him is that he seems to be happy to be there. Whenever I read anything about the production notes in Doctor Who magazine. Everything seems like the biggest drag, and they hate doing everything apart from him. Right now, there's one thing that has made me really crazy. There are both a small clump of people who are insane, that were upset that because his skin color wasn't just the right match for them, and there's other people who are insanely happy because of his skin color. To me, if we're matching people's skin color, which just seems an insanity, I can't believe we've come to this. But we're matching skin color. He looks about the same as Roger Delgado to me. You're like, I don't think he's the first, person, whatever you want to call it. I just don't think he is. I think Roger Delgado played him as somebody with kind of like a suave Arabic.
He was the best. He was the best master. He was. And every other master, the guy that came after him was quite good. When they started having the master as crazy, and that's when I lost it. I was like, you know what? That master is not the master I know.
In that first couple of episodes, he was okay. By the end of the series, I was literally ready to throttle him. He was doing my head in. He was just so manic.
I mean, we put out a 2-hour review of his last performance in the role. I won't say the episode's name, and yes, it did go south for me too. But his enthusiasm and commitment to the role does remain. I haven't given up on Sacha Dhawan. The live chat as we're recording this, they're very 50-50 on this one. So I thought it might have been putting it out there a little bit, but it's I believe that this is the right actor in the right part, and that is a rare thing nowadays.
It's a great shame that he's come along at a time where millions of us will not see him in the role. I don't know.
I agree so much with it,
but it's interesting to see that his little outfit on your first picture there is very doctorish.
Yeah.
So that's quite.
To me, he looked much more like a meddling monk, and he acted more like the meddling monk the more he went along.
Yes, so I wondered how that one was going to play out. People in the chat are I preferred Missy. It was always going to be a tough act to follow with Michelle Gomez there on that one. So I know she was very, very popular. People really loved her and would have liked her to stay on. But now I think the time was right for a change, whatever the weather. You'd have preferred Michelle Gomez back in?
Yes, definitely. She should have been the Rani. Should never have been the master. She's a brilliant actress.
That first year again, I don't think it was very good. But the thing I liked about her performance, though, she seemed to imbue, and this is the reason I was on board for there being a female doctor as well. She seemed to imbue lots of things that we've seen in the Master before. She had a touch of the Ainleys, a touch of the Delgados, she had a touch of the Sims, and it just seemed to be an amalgamation of that character. And and the fact that she went from being male to female is a sort of like bonkers thing the Master would do. I just assume she did that to hide her.
But she was also very calculating as well, just like the original guy that played the Master. And that's what I liked about her. But then they got Sacha in and they just went mental with him, and it's just like, why? It's like
we did see Michelle Gomez as Missy across quite a few episodes. That character did evolve. When she first appeared, she was very sort of pantomime. So potentially, if anybody was willing to stay the course, I think as an opening shot, the version of the character that we saw in Spyfall was perfectly fine.
We were talking about Katie Manning earlier.
Katie Manning. Yeah.
If anybody wants to check out on Big Finish, this I think is this is my favorite one she's did. It's completely insane. It's got Melvin Hayes in as well from It Ain't Our Fault. It was really good. Basically, it's an alien invasion in the form of a weird 70s children's TV show, which is the guest on, and it's really good.
But yes, that story you've just flashed up, The Scorches, that was written by James Goss. James Goss just happens to be another one of my companions of 2020.
Oh, there you go.
James Goss here, and I'll explain why I've chosen James Goss. Time Lord Victorious is the publishing initiative that's been going on now for a few months in the Doctor Who universe, since around September time. And out here in the Doctor Who universe, there are some of us that are really on board with it, are quite enjoying it. Others, it's left them cold, and some who have no real idea what it is, even now. And all of those things,
No idea what it is. That's my biggest criticism of it. Most people have no idea what it is. The way they rolled it out is it's insanely bad. Nobody has any idea what the story really is. It's essentially 2 books. That's what it is, 2 books with a bunch of stuff like side stories from those books that aren't allowed to be connected directly because each thing's got its own independent thing. It's been managed breathtakingly badly. They should have had a free audio production with Jake Dubman. Just put him in front of a microphone. He can do all the voices very well, and then excite us with the story, right? Excite us with the story.
It
rather
makes you
than getting
wonder.
Yeah,
It makes you wonder, because I think you're right. I think that something was needed that would sit right in the middle of that. I mean, ideally, I suppose it could have been Daleks. But this is why I've put James Goss forward, because this is the man who's in the middle of this, and whatever else, it obviously hasn't worked. I love a trier. I think the Doctor Who universe loves a trier. I think James Goss has tried with this. I think he's tried to make what is, kind of extended period without, and to bring about something that could have been unique. No, it hasn't worked.
Yep,
I'd sort of like them to try again with this, but just to think, just to box, just to box a little cleverer. Think about what's worked and what hasn't worked, what's feasible in a practical way, maybe for the 60th anniversary with slightly more realistic ambitions.
You can't do it because the audience isn't there. If you've got if you've got merchandise freaks like me who are not buying into this, your new audience that they wanted isn't there, and they've pissed the rest of us off, and we're not going into it.
No, it's also designed to get us back. This isn't for the new audience.
We're not getting involved with it. We don't want to get involved. Do you know what I mean? It's a massive flop, and it will disappear.
It's good. I went in hopeful though. I went with a full heart, and I pre-ordered the Big Finish audios for it. Everything. I've read the comic books. I've just basically everything I read hasn't been good enough, and I'll give you an example of a real failure of this. Like a fundamental part of the story is somehow they can go back to the dawn of time, and you got the Ninth Doctor with the Gallifreyan war with the vampires, right? Instead of Decay, right? But they don't explain how they get back there. But now that piece of the puzzle is in an escape room, which you can go to if you live in London, and it's open. That's really important. Yeah, that being able to is really important.
The problem is that the merchandise has been around for decades now, and they still don't know how to do it, and they still don't understand the show, and they still don't know how to market it properly, and they still don't know what things sell and what have you. And do you know what it is as well? It's because typically in BBC Studios, like BBC Studios themselves, it was Enterprises, then it was Worldwide, then it was Studios. It's because the teams change all the time, and you're not getting continuity, and that's why we see covers changing. We see logos not being used correctly because they're thinking branding all the time. They're thinking marketing. They're thinking, oh, this is good. These freaks will buy this. They don't understand the show. They don't look at the history and body of work of what they've got. And it's a shame that this could have worked had we all been on board. If it wasn't a cash grab, if they weren't aiming it at those of us who have been alienated on purpose from the show. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree with the rabbi there, because I do think it is a flop, and I do think this will disappear. And if they try it again, more fool them.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The goodwill's gone, which is the problem. The goodwill. Yeah. Interesting story about James Goss was what you're just saying about the marketers never understand it. Back before 2005, in the wilderness years, where they had the telesnaps, they started putting the telesnaps on the BBC website, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The original plan was they wanted to make the people be able to, viewers be able to make their own stories with the telesnaps. And James Goss is like, no, they don't want that. The fans want to see the telesnaps in the proper way. And he's like, so he had to try and talk them around for that. So I think he understands it. But this needs a Kevin Feige as somebody who understands the property and understands the business and understands the production of it, like Russell T Davies did. Quite frankly, Russell T Davies really understood marketing and really understood the show and really understood the people who watch the show and how to get it to an entire new audience.
Yep. We have seen an expert marketing job of sorts happen in the Doctor Who community this year, and it's something that happened. No money changed hands, and it was it came out of the blue, really, and out of a situation which none of us would ever want to be in. In mid to late March, the UK went into lockdown. Of course it did. And out of that grew, first from a little seed, really, an instinct to do something just to cheer people up, just for one night, to watch probably full enough, the 50th anniversary special of Doctor Who, the Day of the Doctor, on one night on Twitter, and to get people tweeting. It was the idea, the initiative of one woman, and over a period of 3 or 4 months afterwards, the idea expanded, the concept evolved, more and more people got involved. So one of my companions of 2020 has to be Doctor Who Magazine's Emily Cook here, who was the driving force behind Doctor Who Lockdown. I thought everything that you've just said about what the BBC haven't done, JT, the cynical marketing view, and that sort of bitter aftertaste that gives you, all of that was washed away by watching not just what Emily managed to sort of bring into being with the original Lockdown, that original sort of batch of events and special bespoke little productions, but the way fandom reacted for several weeks. The entire fandom came back together and relished those old stories, supported one another through unprecedented circumstances. Lockdown, Simon, I think all of us were in shock, weren't we? I know you don't do Twitter, but word of this did reach you, didn't it? And we talked about, we sampled some of the extra material that was produced. We got Dr. Andrew Ireland. He came onto the podcast to talk to us about how he brought his into reality, how he made it with Emily's cooperation and encouragement. It was inspirational, wasn't it?
It's all absolutely very, very inspirational. To be honest, unfortunately, modern Doctor Who has soured me so much. To be honest, I'm quite happy just retreating into those Blu-ray box sets.
Same here.
You were there, Rabbi. You watched this unfold as well. We talked about the lockdown episodes, didn't we, on Tide 40?
It was absolutely tragic because fandom was united and riding high like I hadn't seen it. In the 50th anniversary, we were on such a good place. Was it the fantastic story? Human Nature, Family of Blood. Somebody poured cold water on it.
Don't go there.
It was just utterly tragic. We have 3 major fandoms in the world. We have Doctor Who, we have Star Trek, we have Star Wars. I think Star Wars is the most dead. I mean, I think Mandalorian is like breathing a little bit embers into it, but not much. I think maybe Star Trek might be more dead than Doctor Who right now. But Doctor Who is not. It's thank God we have an incredible legacy that we can look back on, and I genuinely believe it's the show that comes back. Right, I believe that at some point it will come back.
It will come back.
It will come back. Yeah, and it will come back in a genuine fashion, not the way
it will.
Right now,
to me, in these two people we've now got on screen, we've got Emily Cook sat next to Tom Baker, and in those two people, we've got a man who's in his mid 80s now, and a woman who's in her early to mid 20s, and they are united. I mean, obviously, that they're there meeting professionally. That was for an interview, but those smiles are genuine. That is what Doctor Who brings out in people. That's what the Doctor Who lockdown events brought out in all of us and in the fan base generally. What Emily did was inspirational. What she managed to get people to agree to get involved in, it was just wonderful to see. It was full of heart. All the other creative showrunners sort of took a step back, not just for Emily, but for all of us. And that was when the reality sank in. You see, that Doctor Who isn't dead, and more than that, that the BBC doesn't own Doctor Who. The fandom owns Doctor Who. The fans.
I'd like to agree with you, but the BBC owns Doctor Who, right? And the only reason why this happened was because of current Doctor Who. People wanted to see real Doctor Who.
People like Emily.
Look, I like where you're going. I like where you're going, Dan. Unfortunately,
it's the bloody
truth. No, it's not. The reason why they hooked onto this is because of Doctor Who now. They want old Doctor Who.
But Ian, this has been demonstrably proven. This actually happened over a period of a few months. And yes, something did blow it up. Somebody did blow it up. And there is always a wolf in the enclosure. A big wolf of 2020.
One of your companions.
Let me explain. Have you not taken the hint there? This is not one of my companions of 2020. This is the big bad wolf of 2020. And Mr. Paul Cornell, you are seriously one of the best Doctor Who writers that has ever lived. I love your work. Sincerely love your work. I'd love for you. He hasn't blocked me. I'm one of the very few people you didn't block, mate. I think you're a wonderful writer, but boy, did you get it wrong during Doctor Who lockdown, and you kind of spoilt it for everybody else. You read the situation completely wrong. And yes, I do hope that you enjoyed the rest of 2020, that you're staying safe, and that you and your family are well. But yeah, I do hope you've learned by that error, and you know it was a gaffe. You dropped a bollock, but yeah. Happy, Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a good 2020.
He's the Will Wheaton of the Doctor Who universe. He's the Will Wheaton of the Doctor Who universe.
He's not the Will Wheaton of the Doctor Who universe. He's just incredibly woke, and what he forgets is that we made his career with the first Time Worm Revelation book. That was his first book, and people like me supported that book and every other thing he did. And then he kicked off. On that night, I was watching those series, and I was part of that watch along. I was enjoying it. I'm not really a Twitter, but it's just a horrible place. But I signed up to get involved with it, and it was joyous. It was lovely. It was brilliant. And then he dropped a clanger, and I don't mean a little pink alien from the moon. He just had to go on and on, and I just thought, do you know what? If I was one of those idiots you read about on the internet now, I would have had all his books and all his videos and burnt them. Like certain people have done over the last year. But I'm bigger than that, and they will stay on the shelf. But they'll stay on the shelf. And I just thought, shut up, Cornell. And some of us remember what it can actually be like. And it brought it back to me.
Well, it's a shame because he's actually a lovely, lovely bloke. I've met him.
A lot of people say he's a nice guy. Sarah's had to pop out. Her microphone's broken. We do apologise, everybody. Sarah's met him. He was lovely to her, very generous with his time. Simon, you knew him quite well, didn't you? And Doctor here in the chat.
Paul and I go, I don't know him well, but Paul and I go back to literally the mid-'80s. We knew each other back in the mid-'80s. He's a lovely, lovely man.
A cornerstone trait of social justice warriors is they look to be awful to the people they're allowed to be awful to. If you get yourself put in the category of somebody who you are allowed to hate, he will be hateful towards you. He will hate you based on rumor, innuendo, or association.
Yeah, and probably
and he's a great writer. I genuinely believe him to be one. I love his work. I like. What's the name? Oh, what's the name? Did the Writer's Tale with Rusty Davis?
Ben Cook.
A genuine talent, but also I think he'd be a good person. You've got to be a good person universally, and not just wait for the opportunity to be hateful to people. You're allowed to be hateful.
It was such a shame as well for that particular episode, Watch Along, that he did go off on a tangent and he started to bring his own viewpoint into it and he destroyed the thing. A lot of us tailed off after that. And I think that really, really hurt it. But he also hurt the actual wonderful. I mean, Human Nature, for those of you who don't know, was actually based on a Virgin New Adventures from back in the day, which was a very interesting novel back then. It really was great. You would read this with no Doctor Who on television going, that's a twist. That's different. And then, of course, they commissioned it and they remade it for television during Tennant's time, and that became Human Nature and Family of Blood. But he undid the impact of that story with that short thing that's since been published as a book, which was just dreadful. Absolutely
I have good news for you. I have good news for you. I wrote a story that followed that, which undid it. Okay, essentially, the premise was I had
shared it on the show before.
Show up and reincarcerate the daughter of mine.
She published it.
I did. It's on my YouTube channel.
We included it before. We put links to it in the descriptions of the podcast too. But we will. If you send me the links again, I'll put them in the description to this very video.
For me as well, you have to be very, very careful with this because I will never buy another Paul Cornell piece of merchandise ever again. And I don't care if he knows that. You can't do anything to him. He's already blocked me for daring to question him. If I ever saw him again, it's not as if I ever saw him again at a convention or something. I would say this to his face, so it's not something I'm going to hide. Do you know what I mean? But I'll never buy anything that he's done again. You've got to be careful with that. You've got to be careful with what you say.
Hey, but I didn't even know him, and he blocked me.
For the people out there who weren't there at the time, or maybe you don't remember, we did talk about it on the Type 40 podcast. Yeah, on the night of one of the tweet alongs, Paul Cornell had got pretty much half of the fan base blocked on Twitter, so they couldn't participate in the tweet along, read his contributions, and not only had he blocked people in advance over, which is obviously that's his call, it's his social media account, but he continued to block people during the event, really against the spirit of the entire thing. He really read the situation wrong. And I do hope, Paul, that if word of this does reach you, please take what I've said in good faith. But I believe everything I've said. I stand by that. But he will
never give any thought.
He really has been the bad wolf for that, because he destroyed that whole lovely. We were together again for a little while there, but I actually thought at the time he's pitching for a job with Chibnall.
That's what I thought. Listen, for his sake, I hope he gets a bloody script out of these 8 episodes.
Make a big comeback, and that brings me to my final pick for companion of 2020. It might seem like a weird one. But in another way, in another way, it seems like the most natural thing in the world. Yes, the last pick is this guy, David Tennant, for one of the companions of 2020. David Tennant and the 10th Doctor made a blazing comeback in all that associated media this year. Comics, books, audio dramas, the lot. He pushed in through those blue double doors, said to everybody else, pretty much just hold my beer, whoever you are, and took centre stage of the franchise again. Of course,
he had to, because the franchise was imploding.
Everybody won. We won as fans. We started getting better material. He's brilliant in Out of Time. The marketers, the people who are marketing the stuff, they're bound to have got to push for it by having his face on various things, aren't they? He got a push. He got to reconnect with the character that he was born to play. And, it just made it feel like the last 10 years didn't seem like they were an ice age ago. I think David Tennant didn't have to get as involved as he did. Okay, lockdown helped because he was at home. You got nothing else to do, had you, Dave? We get it, but he did. He did it with a full heart and reached out to the fan base again. I've always felt about David Tennant that he's never wanted to be distanced from the part or the fan base or the show, and here he really proved it. He proved what a great ambassador for the show he was and is, just like Peter Capaldi, just like other people could be, and just showed them how it's done, really, and kind of took the franchise back.
Part of it, well, most of it is a marketing gimmick. They know the series is failing. I mean, everything that has been out. I mean, how many times can the 10th Doctor with the so-called alleged 13th Doctor meet and start zooshing around the galaxy? It's just
every time they make a comic book, that's the answer to the question. Every time they make a bloody comic book, they have to bring like Time Lord Victorious, right? The Titan comic book. They bought the story was completely detached from the Time Lord Victorious story, and in the last 10 pages they bought the 13th Doctor in. Like, no reason whatsoever, other than they don't know what to do without her. Like they can't function without her.
It's as though they have this sort of feeling that anything with David Tennant on may boost sales. I'm not so sure that's actually true these days, because the magazine still doesn't sell anything more. Time Lord Victorious is not as victorious as they wanted it to be.
The magazine doesn't sell because they spent the last 3 or 4 years telling us they don't like us.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to say about David Tennant, trying to get it back to some positivity, is that I saw. I never. You're going to hate me for this, but I never desperately rated David Tennant hugely as an actor. In the past, don't get me wrong, I like his performance as the 10th Doctor. I got a bit bored with it. There were. You knew in every episode he was at some point he was going to say, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," and at some point in the episode he was going to be all manic and it was all going. So I got a bit bored. Mm-hmm. But recently, a couple of weeks ago, I watched back to back all 3 episodes of Des. It's a bit grim, this is, but it's the Dennis Nilsson mass murderer documentary drama. On ITV, and he is absolutely riveting throughout. Mm-hmm. And I came away from that series with an entirely new respect for him as an actor, and I realised that maybe looking at his Doctor Who run with the Tom Baker years, Tom Baker as an actor and the character of the 4th Doctor develops a heck of a lot from Robot to Logopolis.
Yes.
Whereas with the 10th Doctor, they didn't develop him. What you see in the first episode is what you get in the last episode. And I think that was a mistake. I think they needed to develop him a little bit.
Yeah, you've pointed that out to me before, and you are right.
when I look at Des now, I see, wow, this guy has got some really good acting chops that, if anything, I don't think were actually exploited as much as they could have been.
Do you
You're
know
right,
what-
Doctor. He's brilliant in Des. If anybody hasn't seen Des, go and watch it. He will rivet you for 3 hours. He's incredible.
I haven't seen Des yet, but I will watch it at some point, Simon. But do you know what? You talking to me there resonates with me, because I didn't really rate Tennant as the Doctor until his last year when I got it, when I just thought, oh, that's what he's doing with it. And then he had a companion, the wonderful Catherine Tate, who bounced off it. But I also think what you're saying there as well is, as an actor, he's learning through age of experience. And there's another point that maybe we can talk about another time, about perhaps he was too young for the role. Because look at Smith. Look where Smith is now. He's incredible because he's learned his trade. He's learned his game. He's an incredible character actor. You know, I mean, look at what you mentioned, Tom, there. We actually saw him learning his trade through 7 glorious Doctor Who years.
Absolutely.
You know, and even at the end, and we know the stories about the end, but he could have gone another couple of years, to be quite honest. If he
If he wanted to, he could have, yeah.
And he was still surprising us. Tom was still surprising us at that point, whereas David had stopped surprising me. I knew every week exactly what I was going to get with David, so it just got a bit samey.
Because Matt was very, very young. I think Matt really got hold of it from day one.
If he goes back into that role as a 40-something-year-old, if he had that opportunity to do another couple of series, my God.
I saw Matt Smith recently in a film that I think is on Netflix. I think you can go and get it on Netflix, called His House, which is a really scary, spooky horror film. And Matt Smith only has a cameo in it of 3 or 4 scenes. But you're right, JT. He's brilliant in it. Now, again, Matt Smith, it's not that I don't rate him as the Doctor. I just don't get desperately excited about him either. Whereas, again, these brief cameos that he does in His House, he's really, he shows a completely different side to the side he showed as the Doctor, which again shows a very versatile actor. And again, I just like to see, I think in many ways, one of my problems with that whole era of Tennant and Matt Smith is both Doctors are played very much the same. They're very manic. There's lots of whirling. There's all hands. It just all gets a bit manic. I like it when the Doctor comes down a little bit, which is why I like, for example, season 18 of Tom, where he gets very, very dark and it's very down and it's very quiet and it's very restrained performance. I prefer understated, restrained performances. And that's what Tennant gives in Des, and it's what Matt Smith gives in His House. That's what I'd like to see a bit more of in Doctor Who, actually.
We've got Derek Paul Brady watching, and he says Matt is so charismatic and magnetic. Yeah, I think he always was.
Yeah, I thought so.
By the way, speaking of season 18, I've just finished rewatching Keeper of Traken. I always had a problem with it. It's a great story, but I've always had one problem with it. I never understood what the hell was the Melker, and like, are there lots of them? Is one of? I finally worked it out.
Yes.
I've written a piece of headcanon, and Melker is a weeping angel, which is attractive to.
Can I correct you on that? Because, of course, the writer there, that particular Melker in The Keeper of Traken, as we all know, which was actually in studio this day in the 80s.
You're full of facts today.
The Melker in The Keeper of Traken, as we know, was one of the Master's TARDISes. So that's there. However, Johnny Byrne, who was a fantastic gentleman with a very, I don't know if you ever met him, Si, but he had a very sort of he was a bit wicked with his humor when he wanted to be, especially with a wee gin, by the way, or wee whiskey, but but he had originally with JNT, because that story had looked beautiful and it was received well and it was lavish, there was going to be a sequel of Planet of the Melkers.
Correct.
And the Master would have been said to have based one of his TARDIS forms on these Melkers that lived on this particular planet outside the Traken Union. It never came to fruition, but when Johnny was sort of telling us, me and a few mates, about what was in his head, I thought, damn, we were robbed. And Big Finish will probably nick that now and try and produce it.
The story appeared in Doctor Who magazine in the early 90s, didn't it? With a couple of really nice illustrations and things like that. They made a really nice job of it.
Yeah, but you know what? It probably wouldn't have been that great. I mean, look, I like Colin Baker's performance, generally speaking, but I in hindsight, I just think it was the relationship between Eric Saward and John Nathan Turner that really produced terrible Doctor Who. Like,
well, that's interesting, Rabbi, if I may as well, because the story would have been for Peter, Nyssa, Tegan.
In Doctor Who magazine, it was for Colin and Nick O'Brien.
It was for the
Right,
Sixth Doctor
interesting.
and Perry. Yeah. So
Oh,
I don't know
interesting.
when the revision came there.
If it happened, or it might have just been Johnny.
It's a beautiful design. I think everything about the Keeper of Traken is beautifully designed. And Melker fits into that so well. We're going to wrap up in a moment. There's one more person I want to talk about in Doctor Who history to take us full circle, because I've thought more about him this year than I have probably since the anniversary year. And it didn't originate from a very good place, I must admit. But it has made me go back to his performance, to appreciate it all over again, to see different nuances in it, completely new things that I don't think I'd noticed before, or appreciated how well he was doing what he was doing. And yes, there is a hashtag Hartnell first. If you saw, you know why that hashtag's so important. But this is why, the last nomination for one of the companions of 2020, even though he's no longer with us, he's been gone for nearly 5 decades. But I'm going to offer up William Hartnell as my final pick. And here he is, the late great William Hartnell.
The Doctor, ladies and gentlemen, the Doctor.
But he'll never, ever be forgotten, and he will never be replaced. This modern mythology is too precious, and the mark that he made is too indelible. It is absolutely crucial to the foundation of this show. It's absolutely crucial to the generations of people that have found it afterwards, that have read about it, that have watched it over and over and over again. You see this character evolve so beautifully in the way that you were talking, Simon, a minute ago about David Tennant. As much as I love David Tennant in the part, you're right. But across 3 seasons, Hartnell's character evolved.
It evolved enormously. And of course, what's really interesting about Hartnell's performance that he gets right, that is often overlooked, is the fact that in those first stories, he's actually quite dislikable. He's quite an acerbic, abrasive character. But he gets it absolutely 100% right, because you don't dislike him as acerbic.
Yes, exactly.
You still love him.
He was this ratchety old man that owned this time traveling thing, and he seems to be secondary to everybody else. But as it went on, it was obvious that he was the star of the show, and then he became nicer. And
you could actually say, though, that's part of his character, because the backstory wasn't there, and he was Hartnell's Doctor was the Doctor of mystery.
That's right,
and you saw things outside of his point of view, and he set the ball rolling for the whole 26 years, because what happened after that was, of course, the Doctor adapted to the fact of these pesky humans around him all the time. Right. Wonderful. What a picture as well.
I think it's during that Hartnell era the Doctor comes to love Earth and to love humans. I don't think I really believe he didn't love them until that point, and he grew to love them.
In the War Machines, he's there. He's battling for humankind. He's trying to save it. I mean, he's just loving every minute in the War Machines.
You make the argument that the War Machines is when the Doctor really becomes a Doctor. I mean, that was the archetype of the Doctor with the military, which is kind of strange because he's not. He's a pacifist, but like especially that scene where they're in the cliffhanger where the War Machines are coming towards them and they're with the soldiers and they run back and he's like standing there.
Yeah, brilliant.
The Doctor, right? And I think he's just seen that right the way through to Matt Smith, to the Capaldi.
Rabbi, do you think for decades, most of us are sort of entrenched in this fandom, and for a long time, before we had access to all this stuff at the push of a button, we had little footnotes of what these characters were. And Terence Dicks used to say, didn't he? I think quite playfully, really, that William Hartnell played the first Doctor as a grumpy old man because he was a grumpy old man. But I don't think that that's necessarily.
Apparently, he wasn't.
I don't think that William. That's right, Ian. I'm not really convinced that William Hartnell was that much of a grumpy old man.
I don't think he's a grumpy old man at all. I think he had. Well, let's be honest. He had health issues that probably made him more grumpy than he might otherwise have been. He didn't suffer fools gladly.
Exactly.
He was acerbic. He was a little bit abrasive, but only in the way that, let's say, Tom Baker is exactly.
But also, he was a stage actor, and he was quite. People really, put him up there, and then he was in his kids' show, and he thought it was a demotion. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why he was slightly grumpy, because he's like, I'm worth more than this, and now I'm in a kids' show. That's
But the kids show made him, didn't it?
exactly.
Yeah. And he loved the part so much. I mean, and it still breaks my heart to think that in effect he was removed from the show that he loved. He didn't want to go. He knew he'd got to go, but he didn't want to go. And it wasn't really his idea.
Kind of like Peter, you mean?
Probably it was the best thing for him as a human being,
of course
you
it
know.
was.
And it is sad, but you know,
it had to be done. But it's still heartbreaking that it had to be done. Because had he not had arteriosclerosis, he probably would have gone for another 2, 3, 4 years, kind of thing. Yeah. There was no, again, we've got to remember that there was no intention when they started this show. To regenerate it, it would have carried on as long as it carried on, and then it would have ended. So William Hartnell would probably have still been there for another good couple of 3 years if poor health hadn't stopped him.
Well, but the question is, would we have got a second Doctor?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Had it run for 6 years, it's possible that it might have sort of run its natural course, and they would have finished it when Hartnell went.
And none of us would be here today on this original day of the first broadcast.
And he did. He just adored that part, and it shows. And that is absolutely what planted the seeds as to why we are still sitting here 57 flipping years later.
Yeah. Here.
Hashtag Hartnell first. We revere him always. And any anniversary, 57. People are 57. What's 57? It's not a big one. They're all big ones. They're all big ones in Doctor Who fandom, aren't they? And they're none bigger really than William Hartnell. He created something really, really unique there, really, really timeless and magical. Something that I still believe in, and I think you probably do too. This has been a fantastic live stream podcast, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us this long. It's been a blast. We've got several comments. Cheers, Bill.
Absolutely.
Lovely, says Vanessa. There is something from Emily Cook at Doctor Who Lockdown. Go and check that out now. It's Doctor Who 57. I'm not quite sure what they've put out, but I will be looking later on, no doubt, and commenting later. I'd like to just take a moment to thank all of you for turning up for this live stream, for sharing Doctor Who Day with all of us and with you out there in the chat. Thanks for joining us. And
thank you, everybody.
Do you want to plug anything in while you've got a moment?
Yeah, just go to Rebecca Gold channel. They've got a couple of films on there, Killing Zone, Bad Day, and other stuff.
Bad Day is fucking awesome. I love that movie.
You could be wondering what we're going to do with all this Companions of 2020 idea. Well, we're going to come back to it for our Christmas show in a few weeks' time. We're going to let you pick. Who. We're going to let you pick who is the actual companion of 2020. You've seen our nominations. We're going to be running polls in the Type 40 Facebook group and over in the Hoonatics with Simon here. And you can tell us who you think is the true companion of 2020. Who's made your 2020 of those people? Or do you want to throw in a couple of wild cards? We don't really mind. And of course, there's the Type 40 podcast itself available in all those places and back in just a couple of days' time for a brand new episode. The start of our third season proper with me and him and Starry-Eyed Girl. Yeah, and lots of other new things. Yeah, that does wrap us up for now. That's the time rotor starting to whirl. Listen, look out for the next Type 40 wherever you've found this, on Apple Podcasts, for example, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, or Spotify. And don't forget, over here on YouTube, stream Type 40 and Type 40 Live. And you can find the podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network's own YouTube channel. Subscribe there, turn on the bell so you get the notifications there too. You can get in touch. Email us at type40doctorwho@gmail.com. There's Twitter and Instagram at Type40 Doctor Who. If you're feeling lucky, you could always try those Facebook groups. It's the Type 40 Facebook group. And there's the Hoonatics, where it's all kicking off. Both places on a daily basis. Take part in our little polls we've got coming up. I'm scattered across all of space and time, but mostly on Twitter and Instagram as the Spacebook, where I'm rambling away about whatever catches my eye, imagination, or both in popular culture, whether it's Doctor Who Day or not. There's links to everything in the show notes and in the description. Happy Doctor Who Day. One more time. Hashtag Doctor Who Day. Hashtag Hartnell first. I'm getting the hang of hashtags. Who'd have thought it? After
I don't know what they are.
5 years. Yes, we'll always have the time if you have the space here on Type 40. But thanks for joining us for Doctor Who Day. Enjoy the rest of your evening.